K9 barked at child's drawing desk. What was hidden in the drawer was a call for help. What happened next will shock you beyond belief. Before we begin this story that will leave you speechless, hit that like button if you're watching from anywhere around the world. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from. The story you're about to listen to started on what seemed like the most ordinary Tuesday morning in Maple Creek. But sometimes, the most ordinary moments hide the most extraordinary secrets. Emma Rodriguez stirred her coffee slowly, watching the steam rise in lazy spirals as golden autumn sunlight filtered through her kitchen window. The leaves outside painted the world in warm oranges and deep reds, creating the kind of peaceful morning that made you forget the world could be cruel. She glanced at the clock, 7:15. Her 5-year-old daughter, Sophia, would be waking up soon, probably already sketching in that little wooden drawing desk by her bedroom window. 3 months ago, Emma's world had crumbled when her husband Marcus packed his bags and walked out without explanation. One day he was there, helping Sophia with her drawings after dinner, and the next morning, his closet was empty except for wire hangers swaying like ghosts. No fight, no warning, just gone. Since then, Sophia had become quieter. The little girl who once chattered endlessly about everything, from butterflies to bedtime stories, now spoke in whispers. She spent hours at her small drawing desk, creating pictures with an intensity that worried Emma. But the child psychologist had said art was healthy, a way for children to process difficult emotions. What Emma didn't know was that someone else in their house had been watching Sophia too. 2 weeks ago, Emma had made a decision that she hoped would bring some joy back into their broken home. She'd driven to the county animal shelter, where a retired police dog named Bruno sat quietly in his kennel, his dark eyes holding stories Emma couldn't imagine. The German Shepherd was 8 years old, his black and tan coat still glossy, but his movements slower than they once were. Officer Martinez at the shelter had explained that Bruno had served 6 years with the K9 unit before a minor injury forced his retirement. "He's good with kids," Martinez had said, scratching behind Bruno's ears. "Real gentle. But he's got instincts you can't train out of him. Once a working dog, always a working dog." Emma had looked into Bruno's intelligent eyes and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Maybe this dog could help heal the sadness that had settled over their house like a heavy blanket. Bruno had adapted to their home quickly. He followed Sophia everywhere with the patience of a saint, lying quietly beside her drawing desk while she worked on her pictures. He never begged for food, never chewed furniture, never caused any trouble. Emma often found herself wondering what stories lived behind those watchful eyes. But lately, something had changed. For the past week, Bruno had been acting strangely around Sophia's drawing area. He would sit in front of the small wooden desk and stare at it with an intensity that made Emma's skin crawl. Sometimes she'd catch him sniffing around the drawers, his head tilted as if he was listening to something she couldn't hear. Yesterday, she'd found him lying with his head pressed against the desk's bottom drawer, whimpering softly. When she called his name, he'd looked at her with eyes that seemed to be trying to communicate something urgent. Just stress from the move, Emma had told herself. He's still adjusting. This morning felt different, though. As Emma finished her coffee, she heard Sophia's feet padding down the hallway. The little girl appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair messy from sleep, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Morning, baby," Emma said softly, opening her arms. Sophia walked into the hug, but didn't say anything. She rarely did anymore. "Want some pancakes?" Sophia nodded against Emma's shoulder. As Emma reached for the pancake mix, she noticed Bruno hadn't followed Sophia into the kitchen like he usually did. Strange. "Where's Bruno, sweetheart?" Sophia shrugged and climbed onto her chair at the small dining table. Emma mixed the batter, chatting about the day ahead, trying to coax some conversation from her daughter. Sophia responded with nods and one-word answers, her eyes distant. 20 minutes later, as they finished breakfast, a sound from Sophia's bedroom made them both freeze. Bark. 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 Bruno had never barked in their house. Not once in 2 weeks. Emma's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the kitchen tile. Sophia's face went pale, and she gripped her stuffed rabbit tighter. The barking continued, sharp, urgent, desperate. It was the sound of a dog trying to alert someone to danger. Emma's heart hammered as she hurried down the hallway. Sophia close behind her. Bruno's barking grew louder as they approached the bedroom. When Emma pushed open the door, she found the German Shepherd standing in front of Sophia's drawing desk, his hackles raised, barking with a ferocity that sent chills down her spine. "Bruno, stop!" Emma commanded, but the dog ignored her completely. His entire focus was on the desk, specifically on the bottom drawer. He scratched at the drawer with his paw, then looked back at Emma as if to say, "Pay attention. This is important." Emma approached slowly. Bruno had never acted aggressively, but she'd never seen him like this either. His barking echoed off the walls, urgent and insistent. "What's wrong, boy?" she whispered. Bruno stopped barking for a moment, tilted his head, and then did something that made Emma's blood run cold. He sat down directly in front of the drawer and refused to move. His dark eyes locked onto Emma's, and in them she saw something that looked almost like knowledge. Behind her, Sophia stood in the doorway, completely silent. When Emma turned to look at her daughter, she noticed something that twisted her stomach into knots. Sophia wasn't surprised by Bruno's behavior. If anything, she looked scared. "Sophia," Emma said carefully, "has Bruno done this before?" The little girl's eyes darted between her mother and the dog. She clutched her stuffed rabbit so tightly her knuckles were white. "Sometimes," Sophia whispered, so quietly Emma almost missed it. "Sometimes when—" Sophia's lower lip began to tremble. "When Uncle Danny comes over—" Emma's world tilted. Uncle Danny, her brother-in-law Daniel, had been helping with babysitting since Marcus left. He was the only family member who'd stepped up when Emma needed support. He'd been coming by twice a week to watch Sophia, while Emma worked her evening shifts at the hospital. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" But Sophia just shook her head and backed away from the room. Bruno started barking again, pawing at the drawer with increasing desperation. His message was clear. Whatever was in that drawer needed to be seen. Emma's hands shook as she knelt beside the desk. The bottom drawer had always been stuck. She'd never bothered to fix it since Sophia kept her art supplies in the top drawers. But now, with Bruno's urgent barking filling the room, she grabbed the handle and pulled with all her strength. The drawer jerked open with a screech of old wood. Inside, among scattered broken crayons and dried-up markers, was something that shouldn't have been there. A folded piece of paper, worn soft from handling, with a child's careful handwriting on the outside. Emma's hands trembled as she picked it up. The paper felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of secrets too big for small hands to hold. Bruno stopped barking. The sudden silence was deafening. Emma unfolded the paper with shaking fingers, and the words she read made her knees buckle. "If someone finds this, please help us. He hurts me when Mommy isn't home. I drew pictures so someone would understand." Beneath the note were drawings, crude but unmistakable. A stick figure with long hair crying. A larger figure with angry scribbled face and something dark in his hand. And in the corner, drawn in red crayon, the word "help" written over and over until the crayon had torn through the paper. Emma's vision blurred. Her chest felt like someone was crushing it. Behind her, Sophia started crying. Quiet, broken sobs that sounded like they had been held in for far too long. Emma turned around, the note clutched in her shaking hand, and saw her daughter. Really saw her. For the first time in months. The way Sophia flinched when adults raised their voices. The way she'd stopped talking about her time with Uncle Danny. The way she'd started having nightmares. All the signs had been there. Emma had just been too exhausted, too heartbroken from her own trauma to notice. Bruno walked over to Sophia and gently pressed his nose against her hand. The little girl buried her face in the dog's fur, her small body shaking with tears she'd been holding inside for who knew how long. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it with numb fingers. "Hey, Em, running a bit early today. Be there in 20 minutes to pick up Sophia. Danny." The note was sent 12 minutes ago. That meant Daniel would be here in 8 minutes. Emma looked at Bruno, who was now standing between Sophia and the bedroom door, his body tense and alert. The dog's ears were pricked forward, listening. Then Emma heard it too, the sound of a car pulling into their driveway. Bruno began to growl, low and dangerous. It was the sound of a dog who knew exactly what kind of monster was walking up to their front door. And for the first time in 2 weeks of living with them, Bruno showed Emma exactly why he'd been trained as a police dog. His entire body language changed, from gentle family pet to professional protector in the span of a heartbeat. The doorbell rang. Emma clutched the note tighter, her daughter's desperate plea for help burning her fingers like fire. Bruno's growl grew louder, and Sophia pressed herself against the wall, her small body trembling. Outside, Daniel's voice called cheerfully, "Emma?" "Sophia? Uncle Danny's here." But Bruno knew the truth, and now, finally, so did Emma. Emma's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The cheerful voice outside belonged to the man who had been hurting her daughter, the man she'd trusted, the man she'd thanked for helping them through their darkest time. "Just a minute, Danny," Emma called out, her voice surprisingly steady despite the chaos in her chest. She quickly folded the note and shoved it into her pocket, then knelt down to Sophia's level. "Listen to me, sweetheart," she whispered urgently. "I need you to go to my bedroom and lock the door. Can you do that for Mommy?" Sophia's eyes were wide with terror. She nodded, but didn't move. "Take Bruno with you," Emma added, and the dog immediately understood. He gently nudged Sophia toward the hallway with his nose. The doorbell rang again, more insistently this time. "Em, everything okay in there?" Daniel's voice had lost some of its cheerfulness. There was an edge to it now that made Bruno's hackles rise higher. Emma watched her daughter disappear into the master bedroom, with Bruno close behind. She heard the click of the lock and felt a small measure of relief. At least Sophia was safe for now. Taking a deep breath, Emma walked to the front door. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the lock. When she opened the door, Daniel stood on her porch with his familiar easy smile, holding a small bag of donuts. "Thought I'd bring breakfast treats for my favorite niece," he said, stepping forward as if to come inside. Emma didn't move out of the way. Daniel was 34, 2 years younger than Emma, with the same dark hair as his brother Marcus. He worked construction and had always been good with kids, or so Emma had thought. Looking at him now, she tried to see signs of the monster Sophia's drawings had revealed, but he looked exactly the same as he always had. Friendly, helpful, normal. That's what made it so terrifying. "Actually, Danny, Sophia's not feeling well today," Emma said, blocking the doorway. "Maybe another time." Daniel's smile faltered slightly. His eyes searched Emma's face, and she felt like he was looking for something. "Oh, that's too bad. What's wrong with her?" He leaned against the doorframe, making no move to leave. "Maybe I should take a look. You know how kids can be dramatic about little sniffles." The casual way he dismissed Sophia's feelings made Emma's skin crawl. How many times had he used that same tone to minimize her daughter's pain? "It's probably contagious," Emma said firmly. "I don't want you getting sick." From somewhere in the house, Bruno barked once, sharp and warning. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound. "That the new dog?" "Yes." "Sounds aggressive. You sure that's safe around Sophia?" The irony of his concern made Emma feel sick. "Bruno's very gentle with children." Daniel was quiet for a moment, studying Emma's face with an intensity that made her want to slam the door. When he smiled again, it didn't reach his eyes. "You seem tense, Em. Everything all right?" "Just tired, working too many shifts. You know I'm always here to help." He reached out and touched her arm, and Emma had to fight every instinct not to jerk away. "That's what family does, right? We take care of each other." The word family felt like poison in the air between them. "I appreciate that, but where's Sophia?" Daniel interrupted, craning his neck to see past Emma into the house. "I'd like to say hi, even if she's not feeling well. She's sleeping. At 10 in the morning?" Daniel's eyebrows rose. "That doesn't sound like her." Emma's mouth went dry. He knew Sophia's routines too well, because he'd been watching her, learning her patterns, finding opportunities to hurt her when Emma wasn't there to protect her. Bruno barked again, longer this time, and Emma heard the distinctive sound of paws scratching at a door. The dog was trying to get out of the bedroom. "That dog really doesn't like me," Daniel said with a laugh that sounded forced. "Animals can be so unpredictable." But Emma was beginning to understand that Bruno wasn't unpredictable at all. He was doing exactly what he'd been trained to do, protect the innocent and alert others to danger. "Like I said, Sophia needs rest," Emma said, starting to close the door. Daniel's hand shot out and pressed against the door, stopping her. "Em!" His voice was softer now, almost hurt. "What's going on?" You're acting strange. Did I do something wrong?" For a moment, Emma almost wavered. This was the Daniel who had helped her move boxes when Marcus left. The Daniel who had brought groceries when money was tight. The Daniel who had offered to babysit so she could keep working. But then she remembered the drawings. The careful, desperate handwriting of a 5-year-old who had tried to ask for help, the only way she knew how. "Nothing's wrong," Emma lied. "I just need some time with Sophia today." Daniel studied her face for what felt like forever. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed completely. "You found something, didn't you?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow. The fake concern was gone from his voice, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." Daniel pushed against the door harder, and Emma had to brace herself to keep it from opening. "Where is it, Emma? Where's the note?" Emma's blood turned to ice. He knew about the note, which meant he'd known Sophia was trying to get help, and he'd let it continue anyway. "There's no note." Daniel's laugh was ugly. "That little girl has been drawing pictures and writing letters for weeks. I've been watching her hide them around the house. I found most of them, but I knew I'd missed at least one." His eyes narrowed. "The dog led you to it, didn't it?" Emma couldn't breathe. He'd been hunting through her house, searching for evidence of his own crimes, probably while she was at work and Sophia was sleeping. "I want you to leave," Emma said, her voice shaking. "I don't think so." Daniel pushed harder against the door, and Emma realized with growing panic that he was stronger than her. "We need to talk about this, Em. We need to figure out how to handle the situation." "There's nothing to handle. Leave my house right now, or I'm calling the police." "With what evidence?" Daniel's voice was conversational now, as if they were discussing the weather. The word of a confused little girl who's been acting out since her daddy left? Some crayon drawings that could mean anything? Emma's heart sank as she realized he was right. Sophia's note and drawings might not be enough, and if Daniel had been hunting for evidence, he'd probably destroyed anything else that could prove what he'd done. Bruno's barking became more frantic. Emma could hear him throwing his body against the bedroom door. "That dog's going to hurt himself," Daniel observed casually. "Probably better to just let him out before he does some real damage." "Don't you dare tell me what to do with my dog." "Your dog?" Daniel laughed again. "Emma, that's a trained attack dog. If the police show up and find him acting aggressively, they'll put him down immediately. Is that really what you want?" The threat was clear. Emma realized with growing horror that Daniel had thought this through. He'd planned for the possibility of being discovered. "How long?" Emma whispered. "How long? What? How long have you been hurting her?" Daniel tilted his head, pretending to consider the question. "Define hurting, Em." Emma wanted to scream. Instead, she pressed her full weight against the door. "Get away from my house. Get away from my daughter." "See, here's the problem." Daniel's voice was patient, like a teacher explaining something to a slow student. "Sophia and I have a special relationship now. She trusts me, and more importantly, she's learned that telling tales just makes things worse for everyone." Emma's vision went red. "You threatened her." "I educated her. About what happens to little girls who make up stories. About what happens to mommies who believe those stories. About what happens to dogs who try to protect people from consequences." Each word was like a knife twisting in Emma's chest. Sophia had tried to get help, and Daniel had made sure she knew the cost would be unbearable. That's when Emma heard something that made her knees weak with relief. Sirens, distant but getting closer. Daniel heard them too. His casual mask slipped for just a moment, and Emma saw something desperate flash across his face. "You called the police?" Emma hadn't, but she wasn't about to tell him that. "What did you think would happen, Danny? That you could hurt a child and no one would notice forever?" The sirens were definitely getting closer. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, then looked back at Emma with eyes that had gone completely cold. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "You have no idea what you've started." He turned and walked quickly toward his car, the bag of donuts forgotten on the porch. Emma slammed the door and turned all 3 locks, her hands shaking so badly she could barely manage it. The sirens passed by without stopping. Emma sank to the floor, her legs finally giving out. The sirens hadn't been for them. They'd just been lucky. But Daniel didn't know that. Bruno's barking had stopped. Emma could hear Sophia crying through the bedroom door. soft, heartbroken sobs that sounded like they'd been building for months. Emma pulled her phone from her pocket with trembling fingers. She needed to call the police herself. She needed to get Sophia to safety. She needed to make sure Daniel could never hurt another child. But first, she needed to comfort her daughter. Emma stood on unsteady legs and walked to the bedroom door. "Sophia, baby, it's Mommy. Uncle Danny is gone. Can you unlock the door?" The crying stopped. After a moment, Emma heard the lock click. The door opened to reveal Sophia standing there with tear-streaked cheeks, Bruno pressed protectively against her side. The dog looked up at Emma with eyes that seemed to say, "I tried to warn you sooner." Emma knelt down and opened her arms. Sophia ran into the hug, and Emma held her daughter as tightly as she dared, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. "He can't hurt you anymore, sweetheart. Mommy's going to make sure of that." Against her shoulder, Sophia whispered something so quietly Emma almost missed it. "He said no one would believe me. He said you'd be mad at me." Emma's heart shattered and rebuilt itself in the span of a single breath. "I believe you, baby, and I'm not mad at you. I'm proud of you for trying to tell someone." Sophia pulled back to look at her mother's face. "Really? Really? You were so brave, Sophia. So brave." Bruno nudged Emma's hand with his nose, then walked over to the bedroom window. He stood on his hind legs, paws on the windowsill, looking out at the driveway where Daniel's car had been. The dog turned back to Emma and barked once, a sound that somehow conveyed both warning and reassurance. Emma understood. Daniel was gone for now, but he'd be back. Men like him didn't give up when their secrets were exposed. They fought back. But this time, they'd be ready for him. Emma pulled out her phone and dialed 911. As she waited for someone to answer, she looked at Bruno and realized that the retired police dog had never really retired at all. He'd just been waiting for someone who needed him. Tell me in the comments, do you think Emma and Sophia are truly safe now? Or is Daniel planning something even worse? The 911 operator's voice was calm and professional. 911, what's your emergency? Emma took a shaky breath, still holding Sophia close. I need to report child abuse. My daughter, someone has been hurting my daughter. Ma'am, are you and your child safe right now? Emma looked at Bruno, who had positioned himself between them and the front door. Yes, we're safe. The person who hurt her just left, but I'm afraid he might come back. We're sending officers to your location right now. Can you tell me your address? As Emma gave the dispatcher their information, she noticed Sophia had gone very quiet. The little girl was staring at the phone with wide, frightened eyes. Mommy, Sophia whispered, tugging on Emma's shirt. What if he finds out you called the police? The question hit Emma like ice water. Daniel had made it clear that he'd been watching them, learning their routines, preparing for this possibility. What if he was watching right now? Emma walked to the living room window and carefully peered through the blinds. The street looked normal, quiet suburban morning, a few neighbors getting their mail, kids riding bikes. But Daniel's car was nowhere to be seen, and that somehow made things worse. At least when she could see him, she knew where he was. Ma'am, are you still there? The dispatcher asked. Yes, sorry, I'm here. The officers are about 5 minutes away. Is there somewhere secure you can wait with your daughter until they arrive? Emma looked around their house, the home that had felt safe just an hour ago, but now felt full of shadows and hiding places. We'll stay in the living room where we can see the front door. That's good. Stay on the line with me until the officers arrive. Emma sat on the couch with Sophia curled up beside her, Bruno lying across the floor in front of them like a furry guardian. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Mommy, Sophia said quietly, is Bruno going to get in trouble? What do you mean, sweetheart? Uncle Danny said if I ever told anyone, Bruno would have to go away. He said dogs that bite people get put to sleep. Emma's heart clenched. Bruno has never bitten anyone, baby. He's a good dog. But Uncle Danny said, Uncle Danny lied to you about a lot of things, Emma interrupted gently. Bruno isn't going anywhere. He's part of our family now. Bruno's ears perked up at the sound of his name. He looked back at them with those intelligent dark eyes, and Emma could swear she saw understanding there. A few minutes later, Emma heard car doors slamming outside. Through the window, she saw 2 police officers walking up their front path, a older black man with graying hair and a younger Latina woman with kind eyes. "The police are here," Emma told the dispatcher. "Good. You can hang up now, ma'am. The officers will take care of you." Emma opened the door before the officers could knock. The older officer introduced himself as Sergeant Williams, and his partner was Officer Martinez. Emma wondered briefly if it was the same Martinez who had told her about Bruno at the shelter, but this officer was too young. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'm Sergeant Williams. We understand you need to report a child abuse situation." Emma nodded, still holding Sophia's hand. "Please, come in." As the officers stepped inside, Bruno stood up but didn't move from his protective position. Sergeant Williams noticed the dog immediately. "Beautiful German Shepherd," he said with genuine appreciation. "Is he friendly?" "Very," Emma replied. "He's actually part of why we're here. He's the one who led me to discover what was happening." Officer Martinez knelt down and extended her hand toward Bruno. The dog sniffed her fingers, then sat down calmly. "He's got good manners. Working dog? Retired K-9 unit. We adopted him a couple weeks ago." Both officers exchanged a meaningful look. Sergeant Williams sat down across from Emma, his notebook ready. "Ma'am, I need you to tell me everything that happened, starting from the beginning. Take your time." Emma's voice shook as she told the story. Marcus leaving, Daniel offering to help with babysitting, Sophia becoming withdrawn, Bruno's strange behavior around the drawing desk, and finally the discovery of the note. She handed the folded paper to Sergeant Williams, watching his face darken as he read it. "And you said the suspect was here this morning?" "About 30 minutes ago. He wanted to pick up Sophia for the day, like he usually does. But when I told him she wasn't feeling well, Emma struggled to find the words. "He knew I'd found the note. He practically admitted it." Officer Martinez had been taking notes, but now she looked up. "Did he threaten you or your daughter directly?" Emma thought about Daniel's cold eyes, his casual threats about what happened to people who told tales. Not in so many words, but yes. He made it clear that he wasn't going to let this go. Sergeant Williams stood up. "We need to talk to Sophia, but I want to do it properly. There's a trained specialist who works with children in these situations. Her name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and she's very good at helping kids feel safe while they tell their story." "Will she have to go to the police station?" Emma asked, tightening her grip on Sophia's hand. "No, doctor. Chen can come here if that would be more comfortable. Sometimes kids do better in their own environment." Emma felt a small wave of relief. "That would be better, I think." Officer Martinez was looking at Bruno with professional interest. "You said he led you to the evidence?" "He'd been acting strange around Sophia's desk for days. This morning, he started barking, something he'd never done before, and wouldn't stop until I opened the drawer where the note was hidden." "Sounds like his training kicked in," Sergeant Williams said. "K-9 units are taught to alert their handlers to evidence, especially in child protection cases. Even retired, those instincts don't just disappear." Bruno's tail wagged slightly at the praise, but he remained alert and watchful. "I'll need Daniel Morrison's full contact information," Officer Martinez said. "Address, phone number, workplace, vehicle description." As Emma provided the details, she realized how little she actually knew about her brother-in-law. He'd always been just Marcus's younger brother to her. She knew he worked construction, but she didn't know which company. She knew he lived across town, but she'd never been to his apartment. "Don't worry," Sergeant Williams assured her. "We'll find him. In the meantime, I want you to consider your safety options. Do you have somewhere else you could stay for a few days? Family, friends?" Emma's mind went blank. Her parents lived in another state. Most of her friends were work colleagues who she wasn't close enough with to impose on. Marcus had been her whole social world, and when he left, that world had crumbled. No, not really. This is our home. I understand, but men like Daniel Morrison don't usually give up when they're exposed. He may try to intimidate you or worse." The words sent a chill through Emma. She looked down at Sophia, who had been listening quietly to everything. "What about school?" Emma asked suddenly. "Sophia goes to Lincoln Elementary. Should I keep her home?" "That's probably a good idea for now," Officer Martinez said, "at least until we can locate Morrison and assess the threat level." Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. Her blood went cold when she saw the sender. "Daniel, you made a big mistake today, Em. This isn't over." Emma's hands started shaking as she showed the message to the officers. Sergeant Williams immediately called for additional patrols in the area. "He's escalating," Officer Martinez observed grimly. "This confirms he sees you as a threat now." Within an hour, Doctor, Chen arrived, a petite woman with gentle eyes and a warm smile that immediately put Sophia at ease. She carried a small bag filled with art supplies and toys, explaining that sometimes children found it easier to show things rather than talk about them. Emma watched from the kitchen as Dr. Chen sat on the living room floor with Sophia, Bruno lying protectively nearby. The specialist's voice was soft and patient, never pushing, always letting Sophia set the pace. "Would you like to draw me a picture of your family?" Dr. Chen suggested. Sophia nodded and picked up a purple crayon. She drew 3 stick figures, one big, one medium, one small. Then she added a 4th figure with 4 legs. "Who's this one with 4 legs?" "That's Bruno. He protects us." "That's nice. Does Bruno live with you?" "Yes, Uncle Danny doesn't like Bruno very much." Emma's heart clenched at the casual way Sophia mentioned Daniel's name. Dr. Chen continued with infinite patience. "Why doesn't Uncle Danny like Bruno?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment, coloring in Bruno's figure with careful strokes. "Bruno growls at him. Uncle Danny says Bruno is a bad dog, but I think Bruno is trying to tell us something." "What do you think Bruno is trying to tell you?" Sophia looked over at the real Bruno, who was watching her with those intelligent eyes. "I think Bruno knows Uncle Danny is the bad one." Dr. Chen spent another hour with Sophia, using art therapy and gentle conversation to help the little girl express things she'd been too scared to say. Emma watched from the kitchen, her heart breaking with every revelation. When Dr. Chen finally joined Emma in the kitchen, her professional composure was strained. "Sophia has been through significant trauma," she said quietly. "The pattern of abuse appears to have been ongoing for several weeks, possibly months. Daniel Morrison used classic grooming and intimidation tactics, making Sophia feel responsible for keeping the secret, threatening consequences to people she cared about if she told." Emma sank into a kitchen chair. "How did I not see it?" "Don't blame yourself. These predators are experts at hiding their behavior. They choose victims who are already vulnerable, in this case, a child dealing with her father's abandonment, and they present themselves as helpers and protectors. What happens now? The officers have enough evidence to issue a warrant for Morrison's arrest. Sophia's testimony, combined with her drawings and the note, paint a clear picture of abuse. But I want you to be prepared. This process can be lengthy and difficult." Emma nodded, though inside she felt like she was drowning. "What about Bruno?" Daniel threatened that the dog would be taken away if Sophia told anyone. Dr. Chen smiled for the first time since arriving. "Bruno isn't going anywhere. In fact, his behavior today probably saved your daughter from much worse trauma. That dog's instincts led you to evidence that might have remained hidden for months." As if he knew they were talking about him, Bruno appeared in the kitchen doorway. He walked over to Emma and gently placed his head on her knee. "He chose you," Dr. Chen observed. "Dogs like Bruno, working dogs with strong protective instincts, they don't bond randomly. He sensed your daughter needed protection, and he appointed himself as her guardian." Emma scratched behind Bruno's ears, feeling grateful beyond words for this retired police dog who had seen what she had missed. Officer Martinez returned to the house just as Dr. Chen was preparing to leave. Her expression was grim. "We went to Daniel Morrison's apartment," she reported. "The landlord let us in with a warrant. He's gone, cleared out completely. Looks like he left in a hurry." Emma's stomach dropped. "He's running?" "Appears so, but we'll find him. We've issued a BOLO alert. Be on the lookout for his vehicle. His employer says he didn't show up for work today, which is unusual for him." Dr. Chen handed Emma a business card. "I want you to call me if anything feels wrong. Any instinct, any worry, anything at all. Men who abuse children don't usually stop when they're exposed. They either run or they retaliate." The words hung in the air like a threat. After everyone left, Emma double-checked all the locks and closed all the blinds. Sophia was exhausted from the emotional day and fell asleep on the couch, her hand resting on Bruno's fur. Emma sat in her kitchen, staring at her phone. Part of her wanted to call Marcus, to tell him what his brother had done to their daughter, but Marcus had walked away from them without explanation. He'd forfeited the right to be part of this. As evening fell, Emma realized they'd have to face the night, knowing Daniel was out there somewhere, angry and desperate. But when she looked at Bruno, lying vigilantly beside Sophia, even in sleep, Emma felt the first spark of hope she'd had all day. Whatever came next, they wouldn't face it alone. Do you think Daniel will come back tonight, or has he fled town permanently? Share your thoughts below. Emma barely slept that night. Every small sound, the house settling, a car passing outside, the wind rattling the windows, made her heart race. Bruno seemed to sense her anxiety and positioned himself by the front door, his ears constantly alert for any sign of danger. When morning came, Emma made coffee with shaking hands and tried to figure out what to do next. Sophia was still sleeping on the couch, exhausted from yesterday's emotional ordeal. Emma had covered her with a soft blanket and left her there rather than risk waking her. Her phone rang at 8:30. Officer Martinez's number appeared on the screen. "Ms. Rodriguez, I have some updates for you. We found Daniel Morrison's truck abandoned at a rest stop about 2 hours north of town. It appears he may have switched vehicles." Emma's blood ran cold. "So, he's still running?" "That's what we thought initially. But then we got some information that changes things. We found surveillance footage from a gas station near the rest stop. Morrison didn't get into another car. He got into the passenger seat of his own truck. Someone else was driving." Emma sank into a kitchen chair. "Someone's helping him?" "It appears so. We're running the plates on the second vehicle now. But, Ms. Rodriguez, this means Morrison isn't acting alone anymore. I need you to be extra careful today." After hanging up, Emma walked to the living room, where Sophia was finally stirring awake. Bruno immediately moved to the little girl's side, as if he'd been waiting all night for her to wake up. "Morning, baby," Emma said softly. "How are you feeling?" Sophia rubbed her eyes and looked around the living room with confusion. "Why did I sleep out here?" "You fell asleep watching TV. I didn't want to wake you." Emma sat on the edge of the couch. "Sophia, the police officers are still looking for Uncle Danny. He left town yesterday, but they want to make sure we stay safe until they find him." Sophia nodded solemnly, then reached out to pet Bruno. "Bruno will keep us safe." The simple faith in her daughter's voice both warmed and terrified Emma. Sophia was placing enormous trust in a dog they had only known for 2 weeks. But looking at Bruno, alert, protective, positioned perfectly to see both the front door and the hallway to the bedrooms, Emma realized Sophia's instincts might be better than her own. Around noon, Emma's phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. "Hello?" Silence on the other end, but Emma could hear breathing. "Hello?" she repeated. The line went dead. Bruno's head snapped up from where he'd been lying, as if he'd sensed something wrong through the phone call itself. 5 minutes later, it rang again. Same unknown number. This time, Emma didn't answer. The calls continued throughout the day, sometimes every hour, sometimes with longer gaps between them. Never any voice, just that unsettling silence and breathing. By 3 in the afternoon, Emma had received 14 silent calls. She called Officer Martinez, who took the information seriously. "We're going to trace those numbers," Martinez promised. "In the meantime, I'm sending a patrol car to check on you every couple of hours. And Ms. Rodriguez, don't answer any more unknown numbers." Emma agreed, but she knew the damage was already done. The calls had achieved their purpose. She felt hunted, watched, like Daniel was playing some twisted game with her. That evening, as Emma was making dinner, Sophia called out from the living room. "Mommy, Bruno is acting funny." Emma hurried into the living room to find Bruno standing at the front window, his body rigid with tension. A low growl rumbled in his chest, the same warning sound he'd made when Daniel had come to the door. Emma carefully peered through the blinds. The street looked normal, but Bruno's behavior suggested otherwise. "What is it, boy?" Emma whispered. Bruno looked at her, then back at the window. He whined softly, a sound that somehow conveyed both alertness and frustration. Emma's phone rang. Unknown number again. That time, when she ignored it, she heard something that made her blood freeze. A phone ringing outside. Someone was calling her from right outside her house. Emma grabbed Sophia and pulled her away from the windows. "We need to go to the back bedroom right now," she whispered urgently. "Why, Mommy?" "Just come with me, baby, quietly." They crept down the hallway, Bruno following silently behind them. Emma locked the bedroom door and called 911 with trembling fingers. This is Emma Rodriguez on Maple Street. Someone is outside my house right now, harassing us. This is connected to the child abuse case from yesterday. Units are on the way, ma'am. Stay on the line. Through the bedroom window, Emma could see the backyard. It looked empty, but that didn't make her feel any safer. Sophia climbed onto the bed and hugged her stuffed rabbit tightly. Is Uncle Danny outside? Emma's heart broke at the fear in her daughter's voice. I don't know, sweetheart, but the police are coming, and Bruno is here with us. As if responding to his name, Bruno positioned himself between them and the bedroom door. His ears were pricked forward, listening to sounds Emma couldn't hear. 5 minutes later, Emma heard car doors slamming outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the bedroom window. Her phone rang. This time, it was Officer Martinez. Ms. Rodriguez, we're here. We found fresh footprints in your front yard and cigarette butts under your living room window. Someone was definitely watching your house. Emma felt sick. While she'd been making dinner, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for Sophia, Daniel, or his accomplice, had been standing just feet away, watching them through the window. Did you find him? No, but we're expanding our search. I want you to pack a bag for you and Sophia. We've arranged temporary housing for you at a safe location. Emma's mind raced. What about Bruno? The facility allows service animals, and given his role in this case, I think we can make an exception. An hour later, Emma found herself packing hastily, while police officers stood guard outside. Sophia helped by carefully folding her drawings, including the ones she'd made for Dr. Chen, and placing them in a small suitcase. Are we going on a trip, Mommy? Sort of. We're going to stay somewhere safe until the police catch Uncle Danny. Sophia nodded seriously. Will Bruno like our new place? Emma looked at the German shepherd, who was calmly watching their packing activities, as if he understood exactly what was happening. I think Bruno will like anywhere, as long as we're all together. The safe house was a small apartment in a nondescript building across town. It had basic furniture, thick curtains on all the windows, and a security system that made Emma feel slightly less terrified. Officer Martinez helped them carry their bags upstairs. The building has controlled access, she explained. There's a security guard downstairs 24 hours a day, and our units will be patrolling regularly. You should be safe here. Emma set down Sophia's suitcase and looked around their temporary home. It was clean but impersonal, the kind of place designed for people who needed to disappear quickly. How long will we need to stay here? Hopefully not long. We've got leads on Morrison's accomplice, and every law enforcement agency in 3 states is looking for him now. After Officer Martinez left, Emma tried to make the apartment feel like home for Sophia. They unpacked her stuffed animals and arranged them on the couch. Emma hung some of Sophia's drawings on the refrigerator with magnets she found in a kitchen drawer. Bruno explored the apartment methodically, checking every room, every window, every possible entrance. When he was satisfied with his security assessment, he settled down in the living room where he could see the front door. That night, Emma lay in the small bedroom next to Sophia, listening to every sound in the unfamiliar building. Every footstep in the hallway made her heart race, even though she knew they were probably just other residents going about their normal lives. Around midnight, she heard Bruno get up from his spot in the living room. His nails clicked against the hardwood floor as he walked to the front door. Emma held her breath, straining to hear what had alerted him. Then she heard it, the soft ding of the elevator opening on their floor. Footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, stopping directly outside their door. Emma grabbed her phone, ready to call for help, but then she heard a man's voice, calm and professional. Security patrol. Everything's fine up here. The footsteps moved away, and the elevator dinged again. But Bruno remained at the door, his body tense and alert. Emma realized with growing unease that Bruno didn't trust the security guard. The next morning brought devastating news. Officer Martinez called just after breakfast, her voice grim. We found Daniel Morrison. Emma's heart stopped. You arrested him? Number Ms. Rodriguez, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Daniel Morrison was found dead early this morning. Apparent suicide, about 50 miles north of here. Emma sank into a kitchen chair, her legs suddenly unable to support her. Dead? A hunter found his body in a wooded area. He'd been dead for at least 12 hours. Emma's mind struggled to process the information. If Daniel was dead, then who had been calling her? Who had been watching her house? Officer Martinez, Emma said slowly. "If Daniel died yesterday, then who was outside my house last night?" The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "We're investigating that right now," Martinez finally said. "Ms. Rodriguez, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't open the door for anyone except identified police officers. Something about this case just got much more complicated." After hanging up, Emma stared at her phone in shock. Sophia was coloring at the kitchen table, humming softly to herself, blissfully unaware that their nightmare had just taken a turn no one had anticipated. Bruno appeared in the kitchen doorway, as if he'd sensed Emma's distress. He walked over and pressed his head against her knee, the same comforting gesture he'd made that first day when Emma discovered Sophia's note. Looking down into the dog's intelligent eyes, Emma realized that Bruno had been trying to tell her something all along. The way he'd acted around Daniel hadn't just been about protecting Sophia from one predator. There had been something else, someone else, and now Daniel was dead. But the danger was still very real. Emma reached down and stroked Bruno's fur, grateful beyond words for the retired police dog who seemed to understand threats that the rest of them were only beginning to recognize. But if Daniel Morrison hadn't been the one calling her phone and watching her house, then who was out there? And what did they want with Sophia? If you were Emma, would you trust that they're safe now? Or would you believe Bruno's instincts that the real danger is still out there? 3 days passed in the safe house, and Emma began to hope that maybe, with Daniel dead, their nightmare was finally over. Sophia was sleeping better, playing more, even laughing at Bruno's silly antics when he tried to fit his large body into the small apartment's tight spaces. But Bruno remained vigilant. He never fully relaxed, never stopped positioning himself strategically throughout the apartment, never stopped listening to sounds that Emma couldn't hear. On the 4th morning, Officer Martinez arrived with news that would change everything. "We've made a breakthrough in the case," she said, settling into the small living room chair, while Bruno watched her carefully. Daniel Morrison's phone records and computer history revealed something we didn't expect. Emma poured coffee with hands that had finally stopped shaking constantly. "What did you find?" He was part of a network, a group of men who shared information about... Martinez glanced at Sophia, who was coloring in the kitchen, and lowered her voice. "About vulnerable children. They had a whole system, identifying targets, sharing methods, even trading access to victims." Emma's coffee mug slipped from her fingers, crashing to the floor. "There are others?" "At least 4 that we've identified so far. And Emma, one of them lives here in town. Someone you know?" The blood drained from Emma's face. "Who?" Officer Martinez pulled out a small notebook. "The investigation led us to someone who had regular access to Sophia, someone who would have known about Daniel's visits, about your work schedule, about when you'd be vulnerable." Emma's mind raced through the few people who knew their routines: her supervisor at the hospital, Sophia's teacher, the elderly neighbor who sometimes watched for packages. "It's Marcus." The name hit Emma like a physical blow. "What?" "Your ex-husband. He didn't leave randomly, Emma. He left because the network was getting too risky, and he was afraid of getting caught. But he's been feeding information to the others this whole time." Emma stared at Officer Martinez in complete shock. Marcus, Sophia's father, the man she'd loved and trusted for 7 years, had been part of this horror from the beginning. "That's impossible. Marcus would never hurt Sophia." "Maybe not directly, but he enabled others to hurt her. He told Daniel when you worked late shifts. He provided details about Sophia's routines, her vulnerabilities after he left. He was the inside source that made her an easy target." Emma felt like the floor was tilting beneath her feet. Everything she thought she knew about her marriage, about Marcus's sudden departure, about their entire life together, had been a lie. "Where is he now?" "That's what we're trying to figure out. His credit cards haven't been used in weeks, no cell phone activity. It's like he vanished completely after Daniel's death." Bruno suddenly stood up from where he'd been lying and walked to the front door. His hackles rose slightly, and he let out a low, warning growl. Officer Martinez immediately went on alert. "What's he hearing?" Emma joined Bruno at the door, her heart starting to race again. Through the peephole, she could see the hallway was empty, but Bruno was clearly sensing something. "Maybe it's just another resident," Emma suggested, but she didn't believe it herself. Bruno's growl deepened, Then Emma heard it too, the soft ding of the elevator opening. Footsteps in the hallway. But these weren't the measured steps of the security guard. These were lighter, more hesitant. Someone trying to be quiet. Officer Martinez drew her weapon and motioned for Emma to get Sophia. Emma crept to the kitchen, where Sophia was still coloring, unaware of the tension in the apartment. "Sophia, baby, come with mommy right now," Emma whispered urgently. The footsteps stopped directly outside their door. Then came a voice that made Emma's blood turn to ice. "Emma, Emma, it's me. It's Marcus." Sophia's crayon froze in her hand. She looked up at Emma with eyes that held too much fear for a 5-year-old. "Daddy," she whispered. Emma's heart shattered at the hope and terror warring in her daughter's voice. Even after everything Marcus had done, Sophia still loved her father. "Emma, please, I know you're in there. I need to talk to you. I need to explain." Officer Martinez was speaking quietly into her radio, calling for backup. But Emma could hear the desperation in Marcus's voice, and she knew he wasn't going to wait for her to open the door. "I never wanted Sophia to get hurt," Marcus continued through the door. "You have to believe me. Daniel went too far. He was never supposed to actually touch her." Emma felt sick. Marcus was admitting his involvement, but trying to minimize his responsibility. Emma, the others in the network, they think Sophia told the police too much. They think she can identify them. "I came here to warn you, to protect you both." Officer Martinez shook her head violently, mouthing, "Don't believe him." But Emma was already moving toward the door. Because despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the lies, despite the unthinkable horror of what he'd enabled, Marcus was still Sophia's father. "Marcus," Emma called through the door, "if you want to protect us, you need to turn yourself in. Tell the police about the others." "I can't do that, Em. They'll kill me if I talk, just like they killed Daniel." Emma's blood froze. Daniel didn't commit suicide? Number? He was going to expose everyone to save himself, so they made it look like suicide and dumped his body in those woods. Officer Martinez was speaking rapidly into her radio now, her voice urgent. "Marcus," Emma said, her voice shaking, "how do I know you're not one of them? How do I know you're not here to hurt us?" There was a long pause. Then Marcus's voice came through the door, broken and desperate. "Because I love her, Emma. Despite everything I've done, despite how badly I've failed as a father, I love Sophia more than my own life, and they're coming for her tonight." Emma looked at Sophia, who had crept closer to listen to her father's voice. The little girl's face was a mixture of confusion and longing. "Who's coming, Marcus? Who are the others?" "There are 3 of them left. They're convinced Sophia saw something, heard something, drew something that could expose them all. They can't risk it." Bruno's growling had intensified. He wasn't just reacting to Marcus anymore. He was sensing multiple threats. Emma realized with growing horror that Marcus might be telling the truth about coming to warn them. But that also meant the real danger was still approaching. "Officer Martinez," Emma whispered, "how far away is backup?" 5 minutes. Through the door, Marcus's voice became more urgent. "Emma, they have keys. One of them works maintenance for this building. They can get into any apartment they want." Emma's heart stopped. The security she'd felt in this safe house was an illusion. "They're in the building now," Marcus continued. "I saw them in the parking garage. You have to get out of there." Officer Martinez was at the window now, trying to see down to the parking garage. "I can't see anything from this angle." Emma made a decision that went against every instinct and everything Officer Martinez was telling her. She unlocked the door. Marcus stood in the hallway, and Emma barely recognized him. He'd lost at least 20 pounds. His hair was unkempt, and his eyes held the haunted look of a man who'd seen too much. But when he saw Sophia peeking around Emma's legs, his face crumpled with genuine anguish. "Hi, baby girl," he whispered. "Hi, Daddy," Sophia replied softly. Officer Martinez kept her weapon trained on Marcus, but didn't stop him from entering the apartment. "Marcus Rodriguez, you're under arrest," she said firmly. "But first, I need you to tell me everything about who's in this building right now." Marcus nodded, accepting the arrest without resistance. 3 men. Thomas Briggs, he's the maintenance supervisor here. Carl Webb, works at the county courthouse. And Jonathan Price, he's a teacher at the elementary school across town. Emma felt sick. These were regular people, pillars of the community, hiding their monstrous activities behind normal lives. They have a plan, Marcus continued. Briggs has master keys to all the apartments. They're going to make it look like a break-in gone wrong. Emma and Sophia would be found dead, and any evidence would disappear with them. Bruno was pacing now, his agitation increasing with each passing minute. "How much time do we have?" Officer Martinez asked. They were waiting for the night security guard to start his patrol of the lower floors. That gives them about 10 minutes to get up here and, Marcus's voice broke, to finish what they started. Emma looked at her ex-husband, the man who had betrayed them in the worst possible way, but was now risking his life to save them, and made another impossible decision. "Marcus, if you really want to protect Sophia, help us get out of here." Officer Martinez started to protest, but Emma cut her off. "You called for backup, but they won't get here in time. Marcus knows this building, knows how these men think. We need his help." Marcus nodded immediately. "There's a service elevator at the back of the building. It goes directly to the parking garage. If we can get there—" "Then what?" Officer Martinez demanded. "Where can we go that they won't find us?" "The police station," Marcus said simply. "It's the only safe place left." Emma grabbed Sophia's hand and their emergency bag. "Let's go." But as they moved toward the door, Bruno blocked their path. The German Shepherd was staring at the door with absolute focus, his body coiled like a spring ready to attack. Then Emma heard what he was hearing, the soft ding of the service elevator Marcus had mentioned. They were already here. Marcus's face went white. "They're using both elevators. We're trapped." Officer Martinez spoke rapidly into her radio. "Officer needs immediate assistance. Multiple armed suspects in building. Civilians in immediate danger." Emma looked around the small apartment that had been their safe haven and realized it had become their prison. Outside in the hallway, she could hear quiet voices and the soft sound of footsteps moving deliberately toward their door. Bruno positioned himself between the door and Sophia, every muscle in his body ready for the fight that was coming. Emma realized that everything, all the running, all the hiding, all the fear, had led to this moment. And the only things standing between her daughter and the monsters who wanted to silence her forever were a disgraced police officer, a broken ex-husband, and a retired German Shepherd who had never stopped believing that some battles were worth fighting. The footsteps stopped outside their door. In the silence that followed, Emma could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Then came the sound of a key turning in the lock. What do you think Bruno will do when those men enter the apartment? Will his police training be enough to protect them all? The story you've been listening to concludes in ways you never expected. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and comment below about what you think happened next. Your support means everything and helps us continue sharing stories that matter.